Welcome to the Urban Wine Club podcast. Pour a glass, sit back, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Urban Wine Club podcast. I'm your co-host, Foti, and with me I have...
It's Ari. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
And Ari, today we're going to take a little bit of a different turn. I know that we love to talk about wine in our podcast, but we're going to actually explore outside of wine, and we're going to get into gin. And with us, we're going to have a special guest, Erik Andersson, the brand ambassador of Hendrick's Gin on the East Coast. And with us, Erik, welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's great to have you here.
Welcome.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining.
Good to be here.
Yes, thanks for taking the time. I'm sure, a man of your stature and the shoes that you're in, you're a pretty busy guy, making sure that you're handling the duties on the East Coast here with such a reputable brand. I'm a big fan myself of Hendrick's Gin, but I think it'd be a great time of the year. We're dipping into the spring. The weather is, slowly starting to get a little warmer for us. And I think it'd be fun to have you on the program and we can talk about gin. First of all, Erik, before we do get into the program, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came about to get involved with Hendrick's Gin.
Yeah, well, it's a long story, to be honest. I'm Swedish originally. I grew up in a small town north of Stockholm. I started bartending back in college. This is now back in the late 90s. And I fell in love with the trade and sort of instead of pursuing a more academic career, I got my degree, but I stayed within hospitality. So I've been focusing on education and inspiration for bartenders the last couple of decades, to be honest.
So did you spend time bartending in the US or just around the world?
I haven't bartended in the US. I bartended in Sweden for about 7-8 years, and in London for a few years.
Oh, wow.
I did about 10 years, a tenure there, and then I moved to China and opened a nightclub in the south of China in 2008.
How exciting!
And yeah, that was quite exciting, actually. Lots of good fun memories. Moved back to Sweden.
Great stories.
Yeah, consulting in the spirits industry. But I've been with Hendrick's Gin for almost 8 years now. I started off as a brand ambassador in Hong Kong and Shanghai, looking after Asia, which is obviously a big territory. And I moved to New York, where I live right now, in the early 2017. So I've been here for a little over 3 years now, close to 3.5 years in the United States, working on Hendrick's Gin.
And how do you like the transition so far coming into this market in the US?
I mean, it's great. Being in our trade in spirits and cocktails, it's really the birthplace of cocktails historically. I mean, full stop.
I can see that, yes.
Not only like America's country, but like the Northeast were really, really early with cocktail bars and bartenders coming over from Europe several centuries ago. But right now it is a metropolitan mecca of like international bars and spirits and cocktails and flavors and everything. So It's a great time to be here.
Erik, the classic, gin has been one of the classic spirits for cocktails dating for decades, right? And specifically, like you mentioned, the U.S., during the eras of the 20s and 30s and so on, martinis were the thing of that era. And if I'm not mistaken, right, gin was basically the call for the spirit of martinis back then. And
it certainly was, yeah.
Right. Now most martini, the term martini has obviously evolved where you're using other types of bases, but gin is basically where it started. And
It, yeah.
and a lot of our folks, have probably had gin one way or the other, whether it was a mixed cocktail, a martini, or now what we consider a classic gin and tonic. It seems that gin and tonic has really put gin more so in the general sense of the market with most consumers. Um, but could you tell us a little about what gin really is? I know a lot of folks drink gin, but they really don't know what gin really is.
Yeah, so gin is a fascinating spirit, and to backtrack a little bit, when in the world of cocktails, gin wasn't very. It has in its present form about there's almost 200 years of history of
Wow.
how gin has been, but juniper spirits as a category has been around for much longer. But how gin is today and more like up until the late 90s, gin
Yeah.
was very much of a constant from the early 1800s up to only 20 years ago. But and that was the London dry gin style. Bartenders loved it, but the category was very homogeneous. It was almost like a constant, and
Mm.
people didn't really talk about gin as a diverse spirit category. You look at like single malt Scotch, or if you look at bourbon or other spirits, you have a very defined geographical origin, or like this whiskey has this character because it's from this part of that country and whatnot.
Right.
Gin up until 20 years ago, it was gin, and nobody
Really?
even talked
I
about.
never
Yeah,
knew
nobody
that.
talked about. Yeah, like why is this gin different and what? It was gin was gin. But then Hendrick's was launched in 1999 here in the northeast of the United States. Boston was one of the first cities in the world to have it, and
Wow.
yeah, and then sort of bartenders starting to come back to gin, because I'm gonna go back to this. You mentioned the martini here, and the martini is
Right.
one of the most iconic drinks as we know. But for many decades, martinis were made with vodka, and there's nothing wrong with a vodka martini, but the
But
martini is originally a gin drink,
right.
uh,
And I
and
only know that because I used to follow James Bond often.
oh yeah, and he actually drinks gin and vodka martinis, combinations of the two even
Oh, that's
in a
deadly.
cocktail. Yeah, in the first book, Casino Royale, which was written in, I believe, in 1957, late
Yeah.
50s at least, this martini, the Vesper martini, was mentioned, and it was 3 parts gin to 1 part vodka and a bit of quina lillet. So he had vodka and gin in that martini. But then kind of James Bond switched to vodka martinis, and this was all about, Ian Fleming following the trends that was in America in the 60s. In the first movie, Dr. No from 62, he was drinking vodka martinis because that was the latest thing in New York City at that time. That's what everybody was having.
Interesting. That's so cool.
And in the 60s, or I believe it was in 67 or in the late 60s, vodka overtook gin as the main
Mm.
spirit in America. So like a lot of these, and gin martinis has a history before that of almost 100 years, from at least 1870s or 1880s. There were drinks that were similar to the martini that we see today. So the martini was really an established drink, and then kind of vodka came in and swooped gin's feet off the ground for a little bit. But what is good now is that we're back with gin, and people are really embracing gin as the main spirit. Because I know that you
Definitely.
sell a lot of wine, mainly wine from what we were speaking about earlier. And the
Yeah.
martini, it's so important. It's a 2-component drink, really. It is the gin, but it's also the vermouth. And vermouth,
Right.
for everyone out there in the ether, it's an aromatized and fortified wine. and the aromatization or the flavors in the wine, it comes from botanicals. And
Correct.
gin is a spirit that is redistilled with botanicals. So in my opinion, I think gin and vermouth belong together. And
I agree.
that's in a martini and many other cocktails as well, of course. But that's a little
So-
martini spiel on my side.
So Eric, so basically the base of gin is redistilled or distilled botanicals.
Exactly. Yeah. So the flavor in the spirit, the flavor in gin comes from the botanicals. And so the spirit from which gin is made from, it's what we call an NGS or GNS, which is a grain neutral spirit. The
Grain,
flavor,
I see.
yeah, so it's a neutral spirit. So we don't really
Gotcha.
we don't want any flavor from it. We just want the ethanol.
As a base.
Exactly. It's basically, think about it this way. It's the blank Word document that you start to write your novel on.
Oh,
So it's
That makes
just
more
that bit.
sense now. And is there any rules as far as, we'll use the term botanicals, but are you able to use any botanicals you want? Is there some kind of criteria that must be followed?
There are a few ones. The main or the one of the botanicals, and according to some, it's the main botanical, and it doesn't have to be the main botanical by weight, but it needs to be there, and that is juniper berries.
Juniper berries, yes.
yeah.
I mean, I
the
hear that
name,
often.
yeah. The name gin actually derives from the word juniper. So the French word for juniper is genièvre, and in Holland they made a spirit called Genever, and later on in England they made gin. So we can see how
that's
the
how it
word
evolved.
etymology. Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But apart from the juniper, you can include pretty much any botanical you want. But there are a few ones that are quite common, as dried coriander seeds, very common. Different types of citrus peel, lemon, orange. We have different types of roots, like the angelica or the orris root, are quite common.
Okay.
And so these are used in many gins. They're not mandatory by at all, but they are very common.
Very
Where
common.
Hendrick starters, and where Hendrick starters stand out a bit is that we use a bit more flowers in our gin. And we have elderflower and chamomile, which rounds the gin out really nicely. So I wouldn't say that Hendrick's is a very floral gin, but it has floral notes to it. So that's why we stand out. But we make Hendrick's in a slightly different way, where we distill it with two different copper stills. So we have the same botanicals in both, but one still produces a light floral and fragrant spirit, but the other one is more robust, big, and pungent distillate. And we blend those two together, so we get the best of both worlds. And after that, we infuse it with cucumbers and roses. So those are the two magical ingredients in Hendrick's gin.
I think that's what makes it for me, is that distinct addition that you just mentioned. That cucumber addition is something that really, connects with me as a drinker.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes the gin lighter and a little bit more herbal. And the rose adds a hint of sweetness. So it's not sweetened, but it's just that floral hint of sweetness that's added with the roses.
Yes, and I find it to be very clean. It's not too overwhelming, because some gins I find can be a little overwhelming with either they're very aromatic or very too much of one flavor when it comes to the style. But with Hendrick's, I find great balance.
I've done so many trade shows where we have mostly wine in the London, in Hong Kong, Shanghai, Tokyo, all over the world. And it seems to be a wine drinker's favorite. And I didn't really understand it, first of all. Yeah, but where I think it comes from? Because Leslie Gracie, who created Hendrick's in '99, she's still the master distiller in Scotland.
Okay.
She runs the show over there. She decided to use these two types of stills, so that one lighter and one more pungent, and it's that balance. It's all about the balance in it. You don't want something to be too much or too little. You want the roundness.
Correct.
So that's where the formula of Hendrick's is so important, like how we make it. And to this date, I don't really know any other distillers who make gin using these two types of stills.
Whatever that she is doing, she's got it right on.
Yeah, she's quite magnificent, I have to say. Extraordinary distiller.
And now, and go on, Eric.
No, go on.
I was going to say now. I mean, and then considering you have such a you can I enjoy Hendrick's, which I am right now, with just basically on the rocks, just the way it is, with a slice of freshly sliced cucumber. And for me, that's just a great kickback sipping selection. But beyond that, give us some of your thoughts and recommendations on some of the new trends and approaches to making cocktails, how you can actually utilize Hendrick's other than just sipping it or making a martini out of it.
So I think that the trends right now, and international trends, and trends come from the best bars in Boston and New York, and from across the country. A lot of the drinks are gin drinks, which is really, really good for us. But it's also it's quite logical that this spirit that used to be dominating spirits list and cocktail menus a long time ago is once back and really becoming a very interesting spirit. So an old mentor of mine, his name is Angus Winchester, he once said, a vodka drinker is a gin drinker in training. So a lot of drinks,
I like that.
Yeah, it's good. And like a lot of drinks that you make with vodka, you can actually make with gin as well. But so a very straightforward recipe, something that everybody can make at home, is to just make a fresh lemonade. So like a fresh Hendrick's lemonade with a little bit of simple syrup, fresh lemon juice, Hendrick's gin, and elongate it with club soda. So just club soda to make it a long drink, basically.
Sure.
That stuff is really easy. One of my favorite drinks has been for a while now is the Negroni. And the Negroni is it's a classic drink, originates from Italy, but it's a drink that's enjoyed all over the world. And we have a Campari, sweet vermouth, and Hendrick's gin in equal parts. So it's quite an easy delicious recipe. Yeah, so like just one part of each of those that would work really well. But because I really like martinis, and hosting people at home. I know we're not hosting a lot of people at home these days because of the current situation in May in 2020. But when we have a few people at home, we can have pre-batched martinis. And this is really easy to make at home because if you look at your dry martini in front of you, the liquid inside is about 5 parts gin to 1 part vermouth to 1 part water.
Okay.
The water, it comes from when you're stirring the martini with ice.
Right.
So stirring the drink like this, it just helps to the primary purpose is to cool it down, but an almost equally important purpose is to dilute the drink, because if we just drink the gin and the vermouth, it'll be too strong, right?
Right.
So the dilution is really important. So what ends up in the glass ultimately is about 5 parts gin to 1 part water to 1 part of the vermouth. When you think about it, if you take a bottle of Hendrick's and you take out we take out 2/5. Oh, sorry, 2/6 actually. Hang on, is it? No, 2/7. I'm doing math on the fly here.
Either that or you're drinking a little too much Hendrick's right now.
Yeah, right. But you can pre-bottle the martini and stick it in the freezer. because if you take out 2 parts and you put in 1 part water and 1 part vermouth, you can actually have your martini pre-batch. You just stick it in the freezer, and when you come out and you have maybe 10 people over for dinner once this is passed, and then you can actually just pour out 10 perfectly frozen cold martinis in glasses.
I never thought of that.
It's a really easy drink to make, because I think a lot of people like making 2 martinis for yourself and your partner is always an easy thing to do. But when you're hosting, it's kind of hard to make cocktails, right?
I know what you mean.
You probably
you never make enough, or you make too much, and then you're going back and forth trying to supplement the drink for X amount of guests, and it never comes out the way you want it to come out when it's multiple people.
Yeah, and the sort of the measurements and the theory behind the whole pre-bottled martini is that with the Hendrick's pre-bottled martini, the alcohol strength comes down to around 67 proof.
Okay.
And the freezing point for 67 proof in my tables that I look at as a gin nerd I think it's around 9 degrees Fahrenheit. 0 degrees Fahrenheit. While it's 0 degrees, 9 degrees Fahrenheit, and the freezing point for a freezer is around 0 -9. So essentially, the gin won't freeze in the bottle.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's always the thought. I have over the time have put different spirits in the freezer on the fly, just because I don't know, I didn't have access to ice enough, and I guess most folks are like, oh, I didn't know that I could do that.
80 proof is always fine.
Anything below
67,
that?
Yeah, down to 67, you're okay. When it becomes lower than that, you got to watch out a little bit. But a pre-bottled martini, and then the bottle explodes and you freeze it.
Well, there you go.
So you want to stay out
There's
of that.
a good tip right there.
Yeah, and very few cocktails are, in fact, at that strength. So there are very few cocktails that you can actually bottle and stick in your freezer.
Right. Okay, that's a good tip. We should actually, Ari, we should actually put that on our site to let folks know that here's a cool tip that you can make batches.
To do a video for us, because this is good. This is good content right here.
Right.
Good.
So just for our folks, let them know that we have got videos coming in the pipeline, and Eric's going to be in one of them.
Absolutely.
I think many of them, hopefully.
So basically, Eric, too. I mean, we want to let our folks know that after listening to yourself and the origins of gin and how Hendrick's is actually, in our opinion, in my opinion, and folks that try could probably back this up, as Hendrick's is just an amazing gin, so well balanced, and any bar I've been to, restaurant, fine dining, casual, Hendrick's is on basically the call for premium, and whenever you see folks ordering their martinis, and they call it right away with Hendrick's, they know that what they're drinking. So we also want to let our folks know that we basically have been able to load spirits now onto our platform. So our folks not only can purchase wines that we highly recommend, now we're introducing spirits to our platform, so they can easily visit our app or our site, and they can actually have the opportunity that if they can't get out to buy a bottle of Hendrick's, they can actually get it ordered from our platform.
I think that's great. That's so good that you're like flexible in these times to serve them. To serve people at home who are, we're not really maybe ready to go out and drink in bars as we were, 6 months ago. Hopefully we'll be soon, but we got to get the studios together. So
on that note, Erik, we want to, we spoke about this briefly, but we would love to officially invite you to our virtual webinars. We could have one dedicated, totally to Hendrick's, and you could talk about it. You could show us some stuff. It'll be a virtual interactive experience. So yeah, we would definitely love to have you on board.
I love the sound of that. I love making drinks
Excellent.
and talking about them, so it'll be good. And so I have an Instagram, or we call it Ginstagram in our business. It's at Young Mr. Flanagan. So if you are familiar with the drama documentary with Tom Cruise from the 80s, it's called Cocktail.
Yeah.
His name in that movie is Brian Flanagan, and my mentor in Sweden, he always called me Young Mr. Flanagan. So I just took that Instagram and Twitter handle. So on Instagram, I do post quite a lot of cocktail videos on stories and my posts. But also we have a lot of great recipes and stuff on hendricksgin.com as well, which is where you can find those things.
So excellent. We'll definitely provide that on our platform.
His Instagram handle, Young Mr. Flanagan, and hendricksgin.com.
Yeah. And Hendrick's Gin, one word, on Instagram as well.
And we'll also link to those in the podcast and through our social media as well. And definitely, everybody out there, stay tuned for all the webinars that are coming your way, interactive. It'll be just as much fun as being there, except Foti can't actually come in and touch you in any way, which is a good thing. So it's a big
my glass.
It's a big plus. But very interactive and a lot of fun, and we'll have a few drinks along the way and enjoy everybody's company and the amazing content that Erik will bring as well.
Excellent. Erik, any last minute comments or thoughts you want to share with us?
Well, yeah, of course. It's I'm not going to go into the topic of our current situation right now, but I would just like to say to everyone out there that it's to make cocktails at home. It is really enjoyable, and to explore the world of flavors is just it's fantastic. And wine pairing to food is great, but you can also pair cocktails to food. And the inspiration that you got from your great cocktail bars out there, those are drinks that you can also make at home. And we look forward to seeing you in videos that are coming up and sort of teaching you the techniques and the recipes that you all can make at home. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to join you guys tonight. It's been a pleasure.
I just wanted to throw in one thing. I spoke the least amount I've ever spoken in this podcast because I was learning and I was absolutely enthralled with everything you were saying. It was very educational, very interesting. I loved hearing all about it, and I know that our listeners will too. And I can't wait to get some video as well.
Excellent. Well, there you have it, folks. With this, we want to thank Erik Andersson, the brand ambassador for Hendrick's on the East Coast. Thank you so much, Erik. It's been a pleasure to have you on the program. We will definitely have you back with us. Now you're part of the Urban Wine Club family. We would just want you to wish you be healthy, safe, and obviously at some point we will always, get together and connect. But in the meantime, we'll connect virtually, whether it's through our webinars, our virtual tastings, and our podcast. But thank you very much.
Since he could always share with us.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone, and thank you for joining us.